Welcome to the Millionaire Next Door podcast with Robert Curtis, CFP accredited investment fiduciary from Signature Estate and Investment Advisors. In this podcast, we help successful wealth accumulators like you looking to transition to a work optional lifestyle by helping you build strategies for growing and maintaining your wealth. Robert draws from years of experience and fiduciary responsibility and interviews guest experts to help you build reliable strategies to grow and maintain your wealth. Now, on to the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Millionaire Next Door podcast. Thanks if you're returning to the podcast, and if you're just listening for the first time, we really appreciate you being here. I think this is episode 60 now, if you can believe that, depending upon the recording schedule. We've got a terrific guest. This is a repeat guest, April Rosenberry. She's an attorney with my firm, SEIA, and so we're delighted to have her back. She was on episode 46 back in March of 2024. That's a really good episode to listen to as well, covering all areas of estate planning, and that's a really important value-added resource for my team, my clients, for anybody looking for help in this matter. We don't draft the actual documents, but we can partner up with April and her team. We can get a lot of review, a lot of coaching. You can ask a lot of questions before you go to a pricey attorney. She did this for many, many years. I'll let her comment on that. And we're delighted to have her back. There's some big potential changes coming up in the tax laws we might want to touch on because they're really close to happening right at the beginning of 2025. And we were also going to cover special needs trusts and planning today in our conversation. So welcome back, April. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be back. A repeat guest. I love it. Repeat.
Yeah, we hope to have you again for sure because you're a really important resource. And you've been with us, is it now a year, more than a year? Time flies, doesn't it? But we're just out of curiosity.
Time flies when you're having fun. It's almost 1 year. I can't believe it. It's been amazing. It's been really fun.
Yeah. So I've reached out and it's really expanded what I can do with clients. We had a client in the Southeast needed an attorney. You were able to introduce him to a firm out there. We've got folks we're working with special needs trusts, just other matters as they come up. So I think it's really great that you're here and for folks to take advantage of it. But today we have you to talk about some of your expertise. And I don't know if you want to talk about your background or you just want to kind of launch into today's conversation, which would be terrific, however you want to proceed.
Yeah, I think I can launch in a quick second on my background just so people that haven't met me or heard me before will know who's talking to you today. So I have been a tax attorney for just about 26 years now. It's hard to admit out loud, but 26 years and licensed in California and New York. My practice before I came to work at SEIA was really in the realm of drafting complex estate plans for my business clients. Actually, that's how I got into estate planning and doing a lot of litigation for broken trusts and also for special needs trust, also for people that had settlements that were minors. So lots of different angles, but everything always beginning and ending with taxes. So I suppose we could start quickly with taxes. Estate taxes is top of mind for many people this month during the time that we're kind of recording this podcast, given that the estate tax laws, the exemptions are very high, but the tax law is by design set to change beginning 2026. So these very high exemption numbers are going away and the high exemptions are dropping down to maybe about half of what they are currently. So that is a huge topic of discussion. But broader than that, estate taxes is something that at least everyone needs to be mindful of, or their attorney needs to be mindful of, so that the right language is added to a trust, because very few people actually want to pay estate taxes. Most people want to minimize the impact of estate taxes because estate taxes are hefty. They're 40%. So that's a huge number for people to have to watch their net worth be whittled away by.
Yeah, it's really giant. We're recording this in early October 2024. It'll might not come out till the end of the month or November. This change all takes place. I know for a married couple, it's somewhere around 26, 27 million, which seems pretty high. That's set to drop to maybe in the 10K range, or excuse me, $10 million range. And that, for a lot of the Millionaire Next Door clients, that's not an issue. But there could be folks that inherit some money, have 2 or 3 properties in Southern California, or, a business, something, and it's not that hard to really be up and above it. So it's a big change. And we're just encouraging folks to reach out if you want to have the conversation. There's probably going to be a last minute rush, but very few people that I talk to seem to even be aware of this. And how many times have we seen laws change or go into effect that's sort of the 11th hour? This one's been announced, but we don't know, for sure. But, a lot of times they're just on the books and all of a sudden it's all changed and people wake up and they're like, oh, I wish I'd been on that.
Wish I had been ahead of, exactly. Wish I had been ahead of that game. And yeah, for many of those millionaires next door, this might not be top of mind, but there are sort of fallouts that start to occur along with the proposed estate tax laws changing. There might be other things that change along with it. And so it's just good to keep your ear to the pulse of what's happening, just making sure that whatever trust you might already have in place has at least the bare bones tax language, so that whatever protection you are afforded, you can implement easily, right? It's an easy fix to do with some foresight, but behind the scenes, if you forget about it, there are time provisions that can preclude you from getting the coverage that you would deserve otherwise. So it's just good to check once in a while, keep your eyes open. It's going to be on the news probably for the next year or so. So maybe it will be hard to avoid, but it's just good to check it once and then you can forget about it. Always good to know what's inside of your documents. And then if you need to make a change, it's easy.
Yeah, that's great. We're available as a resource. We talk about the Millionaire Next Door client, but I can think of these folks who never thought they'd be millionaires. And then some of them are now the $2, $3, $4 million, still pretty regular, but that could grow to quite a bit. They have a couple pieces of real estate and they're right through it. So, or inherits. It's not that hard to imagine. So, keep us in mind. We'd love to help and be a resource to anyone, a sounding board. April is a terrific resource, 26 years of experience. I'm about 28. So there's a lot of mileage, highway mileage out there that you could use to your benefit. And you mentioned working a lot in the area of special needs. We have someone we're working with in the Southeast who's accumulated a really nice amount, but they're still working hard, and had a long conversation with him and his wife. And it turns out, probably their biggest concern is their special needs child. And that person will probably need some type of care or something for most of their life. So it was a big, big thing, and it really had a major impact on their lives as they told me their story of all the stuff they had to go through with the child. And so the provisions, and that really got me thinking we should have a conversation and let people know we're familiar with that, and wanted to, bring you on to share some of your thoughts around that. Yeah.
Yeah, because for those parents or those families where they have a special needs beneficiary, there's so many moving parts that really, in the back of those particular clients' minds, it's on the worry list, as I like to say, right? The parents for that maybe minor child, they're wondering who can be in charge to make sure that my, person with special needs is cared for. What's the longevity plan there? How does it work for people that have what we would traditionally call special needs, and they're receiving some form of government benefit or healthcare or medication benefit? How can that continue and still allow an inheritance? I think traditionally, old school, sometimes parents would disinherit their child for their own good so that they would continue receiving benefits. That is not necessary anymore. And if that's, one thing you could take away from this particular podcast is you don't have to disinherit your special needs beneficiary. There are certainly things you can do to plan around continuing to receive benefits. And that's one of the primary goals of a special needs trust, which, for those people that don't know what is a special needs trust, it's just literally language within your own estate plan that set out parameters on how a particular beneficiary with special needs receives assets, so that those particular assets or distributions won't count against them, won't count negatively towards whatever benefits they're already receiving, and or they are then able to use those assets to enhance their life. So it's really supplementary. That's something that you also see this area of the law refer to these types of provisions as supplemental care, which I sort of like that title. It sounds more enabling and more freeing, if you will, to say this is going to enhance in those areas where you're not already receiving government aid or healthcare or medication allotments. And then also, who's going to make those distributions? So that's the next question. Who do you put in line to help that beneficiary? Maybe it's a corporate trustee. Maybe it's a professional. That's, candidly what we work with here at our company. Maybe it's a trusted family member. So there's lots of other things that you can put into these special needs language to really give it a 1-2 punch. Let's take care of them financially, and let's find the right resources or, unit of people that can come alongside them. And it doesn't actually have to be traditionally, quote, disabled or otherly abled individuals to be considered a special needs. So, for example, they might have no diagnosis, no medical diagnosis, and maybe they're not even receiving government aid today, but maybe there was some sort of harm, some sort of case where they had a settlement. So maybe they're receiving a settlement from a court order, or maybe they're maybe a little bit older and they've had some addiction issues, some mental challenges. And for all of these people, maybe just receiving a chunk of assets outright somehow would harm them. Either they could use those assets to, buy a narcotic or alcohol or whatever their addiction might be. So there's such a broad use now of what we used to see as traditional special needs language only for Medicaid coverage. And it's really expanded to really think about, okay, what is the best way to get assets to a particular beneficiary in a way that will basically enhance their life, solve their problems. And I think that also is really helpful for our clients that have a certain situation, a specific situation, and they're trying to figure out how do we maintain the status quo? How can we have the love and care continue if we're not here to be there for that particular child? And the solution is a special needs trust.
Boy, that is really helpful. I mean, it's a complicated situation with a lot of dynamics. I have a really dear client's been with me for decades. He just, the last maybe 10 years, he's been caring for a sibling who had extreme special needs with then it's kind of like that caregiving, and you get into all those challenges. Or, I even think back, if it's kind of silly, but the early day, like Rain Man, the movie, maybe that was right. You have Tom Cruise meeting up with his brother, and just the shock of this trust had been written and all this attorney, but probably wasn't a great solution. They're springing it on the family. And, those are, we're but it comes up a lot. We might not think about it if we're living our lives and our children or adult children are okay. There's other issues, but the more conversations you have, you find there's a lot of folks. There's a lot of stuff's happening. I don't know the medical side of it, but it feels like things like autism and some of these things that weren't even an issue. Now, this is not just like a peanut allergy. I mean, I remember when we grew up, I never even heard about it and we just didn't even think about it. And now, it's barely like you don't want to pass them out on a plane because it could be an enormous deal. So I don't know if you see this escalating, but it seems like it's a lot of families it touches in a big way. So
it is completely true. Same thing. I was speaking with colleagues on that same point. Growing up, there weren't that many allergies to various food items. There weren't a lot of medical diagnoses as well, both physical or mental. I think that's probably an improvement. It's a good thing that more people might find a diagnosis to get the treatment they need. But that just means that there are far more beneficiaries today needing some level of special language, special distribution parameters than certainly when I started my career. A special needs trust was almost unheard of, except for outside in the court realm where there was a settlement for an accident. And then over time, when I was drafting, I started putting in special needs provisions in every single trust I ever drafted as just by the way, in case I need it, here's some language, which might not be a bad idea if you think about longevity and flexible planning. A lot of attorneys have started just inserting some pretty generic type special needs options just in case, because it is becoming so prevalent. But to that point, it's possible within families, and we talk to families day in and day out here, that lots of different beneficiaries all need something slightly different, right? So in a trust, there might be 4 children, and those 4 children might be set up differently. There might be 3 that need certain, guardrails or parameters, and maybe one can take it outright, or maybe one doesn't need as much. And so it's certainly okay to have different standards of distribution depending on the actual child's needs. Still treat them equally, but just the way they receive their assets might be different.
yeah, I'm just chuckling here a little, only because as a parent with 2 kids that neither of which appear to have those, but man, they can come out so different on their dispositions in life, and and the level of care and independence, and it just never ceases to amaze me how they could grow up in the same environment and view life so differently, or incentive wise, or work ethic. And not to make any comments, but that's what happens. That's pretty typical. Yep.
Right. Pretty typical to have just a different life experience. And then things change as children in particular grow. They sometimes take a different path for a while, and then maybe they come back to the straight and narrow. So there's always this ebb and flow, which is nice because for many types of special needs trusts, they can be updated. You can have some real strict provisions. We were talking with a client the other day that had drug testing provisions within the special needs. And at some point, those restrictions can be updated and removed as persons progress through certain areas. Or if a client's child is receiving government aid, well, same thing. The provisions can be updated because, of course, just like the tax laws, the government aid laws change, I would say, even more frequently. So there's always this idea that you might set something up, but just like life, when things change, you can then change the document to work for however you need it to work at that given time. So special needs trusts, like taxes, I suppose, as I said, change. They evolve over time. They evolve with the individual, and they give room to grow. So you might put some, guardrails that are specific, like drug testing or distributions for certain things. But I would say the parameters around most special needs are basically something like this. If my child is receiving government aid, hold them in a way that, meets the requirements so they won't be harmed by being named as a beneficiary, utilize all the aid that they are, entitled to, particularly when it comes to healthcare coverage and medication costs, because those tend to skyrocket fast, or living expenses. And then for those things that aren't covered by government or certain kind of aid, then utilize the funds to supplement their lifestyle. So what would that be? Maybe they have a car, give them a car to get around, or some clothing expense, or different kind of food. Maybe it's health related food or nutrition they might need, or additional things like that, or maybe travel, dare I say, let them enjoy their life as well. So you can put some fun things in there as well to just make sure, hey, the way that you want them to enjoy their life, they're able to. And it doesn't all have to be kind of negative guardrails and kind of strict rules. It can be more liberal, right? To help them maybe achieve some independence if that's doable, with really a mind to what? Just make sure that whatever mom and dad want for their child happens, and that they're cared for, and that mom and dad can know my child is covered. So special needs trust can sound complicated, but really at the end of the day, you're just trying to allow parents care for their child in a way that everyone thinks is best. And of course, that's going to change over time as kids grow up.
I love what you're saying there, because, every parent wants to just care for the child, and then sometimes things go a certain direction, they get more complicated, they don't want to control it. But once they're adults, to have a conversation with you to get the perspective of what's even possible, because they're probably going to be a little deer in the headlights, or frustrated, or what are other people, what's common, running some options by them. And then you talk about situations evolving. That's absolutely true. I think so many people do estate planning. They get this 3-ring binder, they put it on the shelf, it collects dust, and, it doesn't really evolve much. Or, I look at financial planning, and I treat it's a verb, it's this ongoing thing. It's not a static document. Your life, evolves, and needs change, and children grow up, and life changes, and things happen, and even, I remember back in the day doing ours and seeing that when the kids were real young, these substance abuse type things, and thinking, well, just in case that won't be, but you never know. You have some teenagers or kids at college, things go on. And I'm just thinking of even people with maybe some physical or mental challenges. Sometimes maybe they feel the need to self-medicate, alleviate some of the challenges they have, and sometimes that's not always the best thing for them, or maybe it's even dramatically more impactful if they already have a relatively serious situation that could make things a lot worse. So these are not simple things, but to have some resources and to think through, and a thought partner, that is really, really valuable. So we're making that available to folks if it comes up. And, just again, you talk about this loving and caring for you. It's just when they grow up and they're out in the world and they're doing all this stuff, as much as you intend, they're adults, they're grown up. It's pretty hard to control matters. So
you're right.
That's the way I see it.
And I think, it's so interesting in this area. It's easy for me and maybe other attorneys to put a label on things, to say, oh yeah, we have a solution, not to worry. But thinking back to just several conversations we've had with clients here, the number one thing that really has opened my eyes is there are plenty of people that have a family situation. They might feel isolated in that. Of course, they share with their advisor, because they share lots of things with you advisors, but they don't even know exactly maybe how to put a finger on it, or it seems so overwhelming what's happening maybe in their family. They are not even sure that there is a way to plan. And some of the most, rewarding conversations we've had with clients is just talking generically about estate planning. Maybe they had no plan, or they had one and thought about making some changes. And then they would say, almost as an afterthought, by the way, I have this one situation with a child, and they start talking about it and tearing up because it's just a lot. It's a lot of whatever the family is going through. And for us on this side of it to sit there and say, yes, that is a challenging circumstance you're walking through and you're not alone. This happens all the time to families. In fact, it happens so often that drafting attorneys have some standard language to help you. Just watching the relief in clients' eyes saying, wow, I didn't even have a language. I didn't know I could plan for this. They had never maybe heard of special needs, or maybe thought special needs didn't apply to them because it sounds, like you need a medical diagnosis, or it sounds like you have to be, receiving some level of government aid. And while that might be the case, while that might be helpful, the truth is you can plan for a lot of whatever's happening with a particular beneficiary with some, kind of simple standard language. And to just tell clients, yeah, we have experience in this topic. We can plan for all the unknown. Things can change. You're not set in stone. This isn't forever. This is just a moment in time, and we can help walk through it with you. It's so rewarding to watch people realize, like, oh my gosh, like this horrific problem that I might have seen actually is manageable. And I can take the worry part out and focus on the healthcare, and behind the scenes, the legal documents can be written in a way to solve what was keeping me up at night. And that is a huge reward that you can't really put in dollars, but it's probably more valuable than money, right? People can sleep at night. They have peace of mind that their kids are going to be okay, that they're not going to be destitute or go without, or they don't have to be disinherited, because that kind of has a negative connotation. That can be a different topic. There's ways to disinherit people in a positive way, but there's just taking that stigma and sting out of the planning and really saying, you know what, you're not alone. Like, this happens a lot. And just to your point before, a lot more things are coming up. There's just a lot more health items going on, mental challenges going on, a lot more people being on government aid for one reason or another. And from where I was practicing before, it was a lot to do with medical coverage and care and medication. It's very costly, right? You don't want them to lose that. So just to have the conversation to say, yeah, we can hear what you consider a very hard topic. We can hear you and we can help you. We can help you get to the right place to plan for that. And then you don't have to worry about that part anymore. It's like, what a relief, right? So that's one of the most rewarding parts of my job so far, is just telling people, yeah, there's a solution for you. It's like, wow, nice to see that. I have some positive answers. Now that I'm here, it's been great because I'm helping with the planning instead of the cleanup.
Yeah, it's music to my ears. I feel exactly the same, having done this for 28 years. Again, these are complicated issues. And then all of a sudden, if you're in this situation, you probably don't care that much if your returns are 0.5% higher than an index, the
Right.
sleep well at factor, or you may say, I don't really care that the estate laws are changing and I might owe some taxes. I'll be dead. But you know what? I care about my kid who's got to make it in the world after I'm gone, and I've been dealing with this, or issues spinning out of control. That keeps me up at night. That's a great worry. You hear it in these families that deal with that. That's a big priority. They're fine with the asset management and all those other things. They just want help in this space. And it's a complicated thing. They've probably got some mental health care professionals, some other folks. A lot of this stuff's out of pocket too. So, the costs really, really add up, and they're feeling it. Maybe they have the resources. Maybe they don't. Maybe there's some government aid they qualify for, some smart ways to have the government pitch in as a, societal kind of benefit. But to have a resource and a team and to have these kind of conversations, these are the kind of the really substance that matters, that makes a true difference, and I think is of huge value. And I explain to a lot of folks, we bill on the assets and growing them, and we're full fiduciaries here. But oftentimes the most valuable advice we give is these kind of conversations, these connections, solving these kinds of issues the other will take care of itself, but these are complicated issues, and really pairing the right professionals who get it. I think that's just of huge value. That's why I'm really emphasizing it here, that you're a resource and we can work together as a team, or we could have a conversation. And these folks need help. They're probably worn out from the challenges of dealing with it, or the 13th phone call this month at 2 a.m. that, hey, things are blowing up, and maybe they're not getting the sleep and they're not very functional, and they could use some expertise and someone who cares, maybe cares as much. Yeah. So
yes, someone who cares, someone who can say, let's put something in place so that you have the right documentation, so the right caregivers can come over. And for those particular people that really need a special needs trust, you're right. Having resources here where we can reach out to the proper attorney or accountant or fiduciary, whatever the case may be, from a legal perspective, because depending on what kind of aid a person might be receiving, they really need to have, especially if they're getting government benefits, they need to have the right kind of attorney insert the right kind of language in the trust, because otherwise, if there's one wrong step, then they might lose some benefits, right? So just having a resource here where we know the right resource to then hand the baton to, I think is also critical. And it's also my opinion, you mentioned something that we hear a lot, which is, well, if I owe estate tax, what do I care? Because I'll be dead and, I don't have to worry about it. But I think what our comeback is and has been is, you're right. If you have to pay estate tax, you personally might not necessarily be here to care. However, who actually pays that estate tax? Ultimately, it's your beneficiaries, because they are receiving less of their inheritance because more went to the taxing authority. And especially in the realm of special needs, I think one of the biggest follow-up questions is, I want to make sure my child has enough. And so certainly I've never heard anyone say, well, it's okay if we lose a bunch, we lose almost half to the taxing authority, state taxes, right? So I think, those two go hand in hand. It's like, gosh, you want to make sure you have the right language. And also, if you can, keep it all for Johnny. So Johnny's 100%. Not, having less to live on. So I do think those go hand in hand.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I've heard thinking along that way, but what if it's several $100,000s or millions of dollars that could go towards their care, or making sure or even setting up their grandchildren, one step removed, or that kind of thing. That's silly if that's on the table and we can plan around it. So we'll have those conversations. And then, but again, to the more important, really quality of life for their adult children, or maybe it's a grandchild. I had someone just reach out actually to my assistant the other day. We're really close with, kind of confiding. I think the grandchild has just started some epilepsy issues that, so all of a sudden maybe things are, and that's the grandmother's kind of helping with that, her son and the grandchild a bit. Certainly really loves them and wants the best for them. But, things escalate, what kind of conversations can happen, and a resource. And these are complicated issues. So are you seeing much adoption of this? Or we're just imploring, if we can help someone who's really struggling, losing sleep, not sure what to do, without the old taxi meter clicking on the attorneys, that, before a little coaching or thought partnering before they go in on those very expensive, you're likely to have conversations and get a really large bills, from an attorney. So I'm all about solutions. We're not trying to just jack up a bunch of billing.
Yeah, exactly.
Point.
Yeah, I think people have really been receptive when it comes to special needs. I can think of a few clients out there that, came to us with this as a prime topic, thinking it's too huge. I know I have all my great investment advice, but I have this child that really needs extra care, and it's so big, I don't even know what to do about it, just as kind of in passing. And in those occasions, we solved it. We said, you know what? Yes, there's this thing called special needs trust. It's easy to insert in your document. We'll get you to the right attorney, the right fit. And they did it. And, They have one less thing to do on their to-do list, one less worry at the top of their head at night, and then they can go about their kind of merry way with whatever else they need to do. So I think there is that camp where it is top of mind and they will tack it head on. But I think the more surprising are the ones that are dealing with it and don't even have the language to even know how to articulate, this is an issue and can I plan around it? And maybe they've just been so bogged down or lovingly, in the trenches trying to fix things or handle it when things do flare up, that they don't even realize there is a way to plan for it. So that's been the more interesting one. It's almost by happenstance. It's like, oh, by the way, we're having this great estate conversation without the ticking, of the clock and the billable hour. So we're having this great conversation and having the time to talk to clients about things. All these other opportunities for planning, such as the special needs and maybe other things, are really coming out because people are comfortable. They already know their advisor. So they're not coming in cold and trying to explain their life story to a stranger. They're just continuing that conversation. And it's been really refreshing because we're just helping clients, one family at a time. And that's great because there's a lot of people out there that, like you said, have their estate plan done. And that's fantastic. And it's, gathering dust, just like mine. It's like, we should probably look at those more often, or at least just check in. And I know clients, your clients check in. So it's like, let's just have a quick conversation, anything about the estate. And boy, does it really dovetail in some fantastic planning.
That's so great. And that just echoes my sort of philosophy and thoughts around this completely. If we can, in a lot of cases, our clients, they're already paying us. This is additional. If we can solve a big issue like this for them, I don't know if everyone gets how rewarding that is internally. We might not get any more money, but it's just very, very satisfying. When you're 26, 28 years into a career, you're really trying to tackle some things. I have children myself. They're 19 and 22. But honestly, anytime someone can do something nice or helpful for them, I just want to give them a huge hug and say thank you. I really appreciate it. And if they have real challenges in life, and life's not, life's challenging, and we're finding a lot of young adults and whatnot are finding it much more challenging than it used to be, right? For some of the dynamics and social media, and we've heard all about this. So, and these diagnoses seem to be popping up left and right. So, if we can help, April's a great resource. I love having you on as a partner in this process, and I'm hoping we can have you back, in the new year to go into some more topics. But if we can help in any way, please reach out or share this with someone. If you know a family that's struggling with this, we probably all know someone, or if it's really acute, we'd love to be a resource and we'd love to help. And I hope this has been helpful. Any closing thoughts as we kind of wind down here? I want to be respectful of your time and let you get on with the day. So.
No, thank you so much for having me. I just think it's so helpful to just get the topic of special needs trust out there, kind of help dispel any kind of miscommunications or misunderstandings that people have about special needs. They're not hard to implement. They can solve a lot of problems. And, for those families that are facing a challenge with a beneficiary, we'd love to talk with them, help them solve.
That's great. That's great. So, well, you heard it. April is so terrific. I'd love to facilitate a conversation. If that can be of help of anyone, please reach out. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please share this. We intend for these to be evergreen kind of resources. This could happen 2 years from now. So this will still be valid. We really just get a kick out of constantly elevating the game. And we've really got investment management down and a lot of the elements of our financial planning process. But solving these kind of complex issues just is really, or helping people through that process, doing everything we can, putting some extra minds, some people with a lot of experience on it. We're really happy to do that. So, April, it's always great to be with you. So really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'll look forward to coming back in the new year.
Wonderful. So, all right, everyone, we'll have a great day. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Next Door podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Signature Estate and Investment Advisors. Signature Estate and Investment Advisors, LLC, SEIA, is an SEC registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. Securities offered through Signature Estate Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through SEIA LLC, 2121 Avenue of the Stars, Suite 1600, Los Angeles, California, 90067. Telephone number 310-712-2323.
All investing involves risk. Past performance does not indicate future results. Specific products discussed are not suitable for all investors.
There is a way to plan for it. So that's been the more interesting one. It's almost by happenstance. It's like, oh, by the way, we're having this great estate conversation without the ticking, of the clock and the billable hour. So we're having this great conversation and having the time to talk to clients about things. All these other opportunities for planning, such as a special needs and maybe other things, are really coming out because people are comfortable. They already know their advisor. So they're not coming in cold and trying to explain their life story to a stranger. They're just continuing that conversation. And it's been really refreshing because we're just helping clients, one family at a time. And that's great because there's a lot of people out there that, like you said, have their estate plan done, and that's fantastic. And it's, gathering dust, just like mine. It's like, we should probably look at those more often, or at least just check in. And I know clients, your clients check in. So it's like, yeah, let's just have a quick conversation, anything about the estate. And boy, does it really dovetail in some fantastic planning.
That's so great. And that just echoes my sort of philosophy and thoughts around this completely. If we can, in a lot of cases, our clients, they're already paying us. This is additional. If we can solve a big issue like this for them, I don't know if everyone gets how rewarding that is internally. We might not get any more money, but it's just very, very satisfying when you're 26, 28 years into a career. You're really trying to tackle some things. I have children myself. They're 19 and 22, but honestly, anytime someone can do something nice or helpful for them, I just want to give them a huge hug and say thank you. I really appreciate it. And if they have real challenges in life, and life's challenging, and we're finding a lot of young adults and whatnot are finding it much more challenging than it used to be, right? For some of the dynamics and social media, and we've heard all about this. So, and these diagnoses seem to be popping up left and right. So, if we can help, April's a great resource. I love having you on as a partner in this process, and I'm hoping we can have you back, in the new year to go into some more topics. But if we can help in any way, please reach out or share this with someone. If you know a family that's struggling with this, we probably all know someone, or if it's really acute, we'd love to be a resource and we'd love to help. And I hope this has been helpful. Any closing thoughts as we kind of wind down here? I want to be respectful of your time and let you get on with the day. So
no, thank you so much for having me. I just think it's so helpful to just get the topic of special needs trust out there, kind of help dispel any kind of miscommunications or misunderstandings that people have about, special needs. They're not hard to implement. They can solve a lot of problems. And, for those families that are facing a challenge with a beneficiary, we'd love to talk with them, help them solve.
That's great. That's great. So, well, you heard it. April is so terrific. I'd love to facilitate a conversation. If that can be of help of anyone, please reach out. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please please share this. We intend for these to be evergreen kind of resources. This could happen 2 years from now. So this will still be valid. We really just get a kick out of constantly elevating the game. And we've really got investment management down and a lot of the elements of our financial planning process. But solving these kind of complex issues just is really, or helping people through that process doing everything we can, putting some extra minds, some people with a lot of experience on it. We're really happy to do that. So, April, it's always great to be with you. So, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'll look forward to coming back in the new year.
Wonderful. So, all right, everyone, well, have a great day. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Next Door podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Signature Estate and Investment Advisors. Signature Estate and Investment Advisors, LLC, SEIA, is an SEC registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. Securities offered through Signature Estate Securities LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through SEIA LLC, 2121 Avenue of the Stars, Suite 1600, Los Angeles, California, 90067. Telephone number 310-712-2323.
All investing involves risk. Past performance does not indicate future results. Specific products discussed are not suitable for all investors.